Hello friends, welcome to Civil Dunia. In this video, we will going to learn principle of remediation, planning, source and control, which is under module 4. So let's get started. Contaminated site remediation. Soil contamination by organic or inorganic pollutants is caused by a number of industries such as chemical, pharmaceuticals, plastics, automobile, nuclear industries, biomedical waste, mining industries, municipal solid waste. At times, it becomes essential to decontaminate soil. Broadly, the soil decontamination is done in two ways. First one is pump and treat in which the pollutant is pumped out using external energy source treated using methods such as incineration, radiation, oxidation, etc. Second one is removal of contaminated soil, treat it and then returning back to its original place. This module is meant to briefly introduce various soil water decontamination process. The scientific basis and the reactions involved in this process are acid-base chemistry, solubility precipitation, ion exchange, redox, completion, sorption, etc. Contaminated site characterization assessment. Broadly, site characterization or contaminated site assessment CSA is important for determining concentration and spatial distribution of harmful pollutants under consideration, determining the extent of site remediation, zonation based on which the suitable remediation technique is selected, for assessing environmental and human health risk due to contamination. More especially, CSA is required to answer the following questions. First one is, what is the source of contaminants? What is the type and physical form of contaminants? Spatial and depth-wise extent of contamination, whether the contaminants are stationary or movable. If they are movable, then identify the significant pathways, identify the potential receptors of contaminants. Selection and planning of remediation methods. USEPA 1991 presents a flowchart on various processes involved in the planning of site remediation. See here, we begin with site reconnaissance, which means assessment of distribution, reaction and migration potential, site characterization and sampling, mass balance analysis using predictive mathematical modeling. Then, if we get sufficient more information to decide remediation, if yes, then we go to select, evaluate, and apply remediation. If no, then we go for lab field studies to understand distribution, reaction, and migration, sensitivity analysis to understand the effect of various design parameters on remediation performance. Okay. Then we go for field verification of remediation effectiveness. Then we go for information sufficient to demonstrate remediation optimization. Then select, evaluate and apply remediation. If it is not go as usual, then we again repeat the same process. It can be noted from flowchart that the most important step for making a decision on site remediation is collection of data. Following table summarizes the essential data to be collected as part of site reconnaissance and site characterization. Data are site history and land use pattern. Here are the details like population density within 3 km from the contaminated site, proximity to important geographical features like airport, railway, river, etc., ownership of the land, extent of contamination, method of acquisition is field. Data like geological and hydrologic details like topography, soil profile up to bedrock, information on aquifer, groundwater depth and flow direction. Method of acquisition is field. Data like geotechnical details are like soil sampling and classification, Permeability of soil, chemical characteristics of soil. Method of acquisition is field for soil sampling and classification. Permeability of soil is the method of acquisition of permeability of soil is field, and method of acquisition of chemical characteristics of soil is lab. Waste soil strength is tested in lab. Waste like water quality, it is field or lab. Identifying the type of contamination, concentration of contaminants, spatial extent of contamination. This one is field or lab acquisition. Depth of contamination, it is acquisite in lab. Contaminant retention characteristics lab. Contaminants transport characteristics, hazard assessment and zonation. Risk assessment of contaminated site. Risk assessment or hazard assessment is required to decide the extent of contaminant remediation required for a particular site. The factors influencing risk assessment are toxicity. A material is deemed toxic when it produces detrimental effects on biological tissues or associated process when organisms are exposed to concentration above some prescribed level. Acute toxicity is the effect that occurs immediately after exposure, whereas chronic toxicity deals with long-term effects. It is expressed as mass unit of toxicant dose per unit mass of receiving organism. It must be noted that concentration is an important factor while deciding toxicity, while when a contaminant crosses a particular concentration, it becomes toxic. If the concentration is within the prescribed limit, then no remediation need to be performed. Only those sites which have toxic level of contaminant concentration needs remediation. For example, toxic contamination level leading to cancer becomes the basis for some of the site cleanup programs. Test protocols such as toxicity characteristics, leaching procedures, TCLP have been developed for extraction of chemicals from wastes to verify whether the concentration is within the prescribed toxicity limit. TCLP is designed to determine the mobility of both organic and inorganic analytes present in liquid, solid, and multi-phase wastes. Several regulatory agencies such as Central Pollution Control Board (CPCB), India United States Environmental Protection Agency (US EPA) have prescribed toxic concentration levels for various chemicals that get leached from the waste samples by conducting TCLP. In some cases, multiple extractions from the waste become necessary for performing TCLP. Appropriate extraction fluid need to be used. Glacial acetic acid mixed with water is used as the extraction fluid. In some cases, sodium hydroxide is also added. Reactivity. It is the tendency to interact chemically with other substances. These interactions become hazardous when it results in explosive reaction with water and or other substances and generate toxic gases. Corrosivity. Corrosive contaminants degrade materials such as cells and tissues and remove matter. It is defined as the ability of contaminant to deteriorate the biological matter. Strong acids, bases, oxidants, dehydrating agents are corrosive. pH is less than 2 or pH is greater than 12.5 is considered as highly corrosive. Substances that corrode steel at a rate of 6.35 mm per year is also considered hazardous. Ignitability. It is the ease with which substance can burn. The temperature at which the mixture of chemicals, vapor and air ignite is called the flash point of chemical substances. Contaminants are classified as hazardous in ignitable if it is easily ignitable or its flash point is low. Based on the above four factors, the risk associated with a particular site is determined by specifying maximum acceptable risk using risk estimation equations. Reddy and Inyang 2000. Risk assessment provides a numerical quantification of the probability of harm from hazardous or toxic contamination. Risk management uses this input of risk assessment in deciding how much regulation and corrective measures need to be taken. The corrective action is mostly the practice of remediation of the contaminated site. The maximum possible concentration that could lead to the maximum acceptable risk is back calculated. If the level of concentration at a particular site is greater than the maximum possible concentration, then it requires remediation. This approach would, this approach would clearly indicate the extent of remediation required for the contaminated site. Appropriate remediation scheme is then selected to bring the concentration level much less than the maximum possible concentration. Since risk assessment and risk management is a very broad topic, it is difficult to discuss the mathematical formulation in this course. Interested readers are requested to go through additional literature on USCPA. Okay. Remediation methods for soil and groundwater. Based on the toxic level of contaminants and the risk it poses to the environment, a suitable remediation method is selected. It must be noted that the remediation does not aim for entire decontamination. The major focus is to bring the contamination level well below the regulatory toxic limit. This is done by removing the toxic contaminants and or immobilizing the containment that prevents its movement through subsurface. Geoenvironment. The remediation methods are broadly classified as physico-chemical, biological, electrical, thermal, and combination of these methods. Physico-chemical methods. Removal and treatment of contaminated soil. One of the simplest physical methods for remediation is by removing the contaminated soil and replacing it with clean soil. Essentially, it is a dig, dump, and replace procedures. Such a method is practically possible only if the spatial extent and depth of the contaminated region is small. The dug out contaminated soil can be either disposed of in an engineered landfill or subject to simple washing. Contaminated soil, after that grinding, dispersing and slurry preparation, after that filtering, liquid solid separations, after that polluted water for treatment and clean solid for reuse. And the polluted water for treatment undergoes goes under reuse of clean water and to disposal. However, washing procedures is mostly suitable for granular soils with less clay content and contaminated with inorganic pollutants. For clay dominated soils, a chemical dispersion agent need to be added to deflocculate, and then chemical washing is employed to break the retention of contaminants with the clay surface. Incineration is suggested for soils contaminated with organic pollutants. In case it is necessary to remove organic pollutants, then certain solvents or surfactants are used as washing agents. The method is directly applied in situ where solvent, surfactant solution or water mixed with additives is used to wash the contaminants from the saturated zone by injection and recovery system. The additives are used to enhance containment release and mobility, resulting in increased recovery and hence decreased soil contamination. Vacuum extraction. This method is one of the most widely used in situ treatment technologies. The method is cost effective but time consuming and ineffective in water saturated soil. The technique, as depicted, is useful for extracting contaminated groundwater and soil vapor from a limited subsurface depth. The contaminated water is then subjected to standard chemical and biological treatment techniques. Vacuum technique is also useful when soil water is contaminated with volatile organic compound. The method is then termed as air sparging. Sometimes biodegradation is clubbed with air sparging for enhanced removal of VOC. Such a technique is then termed as biosparging. There are the typical figure of contaminated water extraction by vapor extraction method. Okay. Here is saturation zone, Vidal zone. There is nitrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, oxygen. and contaminated water extraction. The vacuum extraction probe is always placed in the Vadot zone. The success of the method depends on the volatilization of VOC from water into air present in voids. An injecting medium is used to extract soil water and or soil air. When oxygen is used instead of nitrogen as the injecting medium, it enhances aerobic biodegradation. Soil structure influences a lot on the passage of extracted water and vapor and hence on the success of vacuum extraction technique. It is not only important that the injecting medium is delivered efficiently, but also the extracted product reaches the exit with less hindrance. Granular soils provide better passes, whereas the presence of clay and organic matter impedes the transmission of both fluid and vapor. Organic matter provides high retention, leading to less volatilization. High density and water content also minimize transmissibility. Apart from soil, the VOC properties such as solubility, sorption, vapor pressure, concentration, etc. also influence the extraction process. Solidification and stabilization. This is the process of immobilizing toxic contaminants so that it does not have any effect temporarily, and especially stabilization solidification SS is performed in single step or in two steps. In single step, the polluted soil is mixed with a special binder so that polluted soil is fixed and rendered insoluble. In two-step process, the polluted soil is first made insoluble and non-reactive, and in the second step it is solidified. SS process is mostly justified for highly toxic pollutants. In situ SS process is mostly influenced by the transmissibility characteristics of the soil, viscosity and setting time of the binder. Well compacted soil, high clay and organic content do not favor in situ SS. In ex situ methods, polluted soil is first grinded, dispersed and then mixed with binder material. The resultant SS material need to be disposed in a well-contained landfill. It is essential that the resultant SS product does not undergo leaching. The common binders used in practice include cement, lime, fly ash, clay, zeolites, pozzolanic products, etc. Organic binders includes bitumen, polyethylene, epoxy and resins. These organic binders are used for soil contaminated with organic pollutants. Chemical decontamination. This method is mostly applicable for those soils which have high sorbed concentration of inorganic heavy metals. The first process in this method is to understand the nature of bonding between the pollutant and the soil surface. A suitable extractant need to be selected for selective sequential extraction SSE of IHM from the soil mass. The extractants include electrolytes, weak acids, complexing agents, oxidizing and reducing agents, strong acids, etc. The use of these extractants in single or in combination will depend upon the concentration of IHM and nature of the soil mass. In situ application of extractants would remove IHM from the soil surface and enter into the pore water. The pore water is pumped and treated, pump and treat method on the ground. While treating the pumped water, both extractants and IHM are removed. Here is a schematic diagram for in situ chemical decontamination. Okay. Another method is to allow the contaminated pore water to flow through a permeable reactive barrier (PRB). Hence, the placement of the barrier is determined by the direction of flow of groundwater. The material packed in the barrier will retain IHM by exchange sorption, complexation or precipitation reaction. The transmission and the reaction time determine the thickness of the reactive barrier to be provided. The material to be provided in the barrier is influenced by the knowledge of IHM to be removed. This is mainly due to the fact that the above mentioned reaction occurs differently when IHM is present as single or as multiple species. The successful use of PRB or treatment valve depends upon its location such that majority of the contaminated groundwater flows through it. It is essential to have a good knowledge on the hydrogeological conditions where such barriers need to be placed. In some cases, sheet pile walls are used to confine the flow towards the permeable barrier. Some of the materials used in PRBs are exchange resins, activated carbon, zeolites, various biota, ferric oxides, ferrous hydroxides, etc. Hydraulic conductivity of the PRB should be greater than or equal to the surrounding soil for proper permeation to occur. The knowledge on reaction kinetics and permeability of the barrier would determine the thickness of the wall to be provided such that enough residence time is achieved for the removal reaction to occur. Biological methods. Remediation by biological treatment is mostly applicable for soil contaminated with organic pollutants, and the process is termed as bioremediation. In this method, certain soil microorganisms are used to metabolize organic chemical compounds. In the process, these microorganisms degrade the contaminant. If naturally occurring microorganisms such as bacteria, virus, or fungi is not capable of producing enzymes required for bioremediation, then genetically engineered microorganisms would be required. At the same time, it should be ensured that such microorganisms do not produce any undesirable effect on the geoenvironment, such as toxins. The process of bioremediation is dependent on reactions such as microbial degradation, hydrolysis, aerobic and anaerobic transformation, redox reaction, volatilization, etc. An example of bioremediation is discussed in the next section, where in the process is used for the remediation of oil spill land. Electrokinetic methods. Electrokinetic methods are popular field method for decontaminating a particular site by using electrical principles. The procedures is more effective for granular type of soils. Two metal electrodes are inserted into the soil mass, which acts as anode and cathode. An electric field is established across these electrodes that produces electronic conduction as well as charge transfer between electrodes and solids in the soil water system. This is achieved by applying a low intensity direct current across electrode pairs which are positioned on each side of the contaminated soil. The electric current results in electroosmosis and ion migration, resulting in the movement of contaminants from one electrode to the other. Contaminants in the soil water, or those which are dissolved from the soil surface, are transported to the electrodes depending upon their charges. Contaminants are then collected by a recovery system or deposited at the electrodes. Sometimes surfactants and complexing agents are used to facilitate the process of contaminant movement. This method is commercially used for the removal of heavy metals such as uranium, mercury, etc. from the soil. Thermal methods. Thermal methods include both high temperature greater than 500 degrees Celsius and low temperature less than 500 degrees Celsius methods, and are mostly useful for contaminants with high volatilization potential. High temperature process include incineration, electric pyrolysis, and in situ vertification. Low temperature treatments include low temperature incineration, thermal aeration, infrared furnace treatment, thermal stripping. High temperature treatment involves complete destruction of contaminants through oxidation. Low temperature treatment increases the rate of destruction of low temperature treatment increases the rate of phase transfer of contaminants from liquid to gaseous phase, thereby causing contaminant separation from the soil. Radio frequency heating is used for in situ thermal decontamination of soil having volatile and semi-volatile organic contaminants. Steam stripping or thermal stripping is another process useful for soils contaminated with volatile and semi-volatile organic contaminants. It is an in situ process in which hot air, water, or steam is injected into the ground, resulting in increased volatilization of contaminants. Sometimes vacuum is applied to extract air or steam back to the surface for further treatment. The effectiveness of this method is increased by the use of chemical agents that are capable of increasing the volatility of the contaminants. High cost and its ineffectiveness with some contaminants with low volatilization potential make thermal methods less attractive. Also, in some cases, incineration process produces more toxic gases. Thanks for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe this channel and stay updated with this channel by hitting bell icon. If you want to download PDF of this video, please visit our Telegram channel Civil Dunya. Thanks for watching.